The classroom froze in silent horror. Kiara Anderson felt it before she saw it, the sticky mass of chewing gum being pressed into her carefully styled braids. Behind her, Tyler Matthews smirked, high-fiving his friends while her classmates stared, wide-eyed but motionless. The burning humiliation crawled up her neck as she reached back, fingers touching the rubbery mess now tangled in her hair. 15 years of her mother's gentle hands braiding, oiling, and caring for that hair, now defiled in seconds. Something inside Kiara shifted, hardened. This wasn't just about gum. This was about dignity. And she was about to show everyone exactly what that meant. Before we dive into this powerful story, I'm curious. Are you watching this late at night when everyone's asleep, or are you catching this during your lunch break? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to never miss another unforgettable story. Kiara Anderson wasn't just smart, she was brilliant. At 15, she topped her sophomore class at Westlake Academy, a prestigious school where she was one of only 23 black students out of nearly 600. She carried this distinction like invisible armor, remembering her grandmother's words. "Excellence is your protection in a world that doesn't always welcome you." Each morning, Kiara's mother would braid her hair, their special ritual. "Our hair is our crown," her mother would say, fingers weaving magic. "It carries our ancestors' strength." These words gave Kiara power as she walked Westlake's polished hallways. Today had started wonderfully. Ms. Chen, the art teacher, had selected Kiara's portrait series, Faces of Resistance, for the upcoming district showcase. As she sat in advanced history, Kiara could barely contain her excitement. 20 minutes into class, Mr. Peterson stepped out to handle an office emergency. That's when she felt Tyler Matthews slide into the seat behind her. Tyler had been a problem since freshman year. The son of Westlake's biggest donor, he seemed to resent Kiara's academic success. His wealthy family had endowed the science wing, and he expected to be the star student. Instead, Kiara consistently outshined him, especially in their shared AP classes. "Hey Brainiac," he whispered. "Got the history answers figured out already? Some of us work for our grades instead of getting special treatment." Kiara ignored him, focusing on her textbook. She'd learned that engagement only encouraged him. Around them, students pretended not to listen while stealing glances. Tyler's friends, Jackson and Eli, watched with anticipation from across the room. Zoe Franklin, a quiet white girl who sometimes partnered with Kiara on projects, stared at her desk, uncomfortable but silent. "What's wrong? Too good to talk to me?" Tyler pressed. "Always acting so superior." Kiara adjusted her posture, sitting taller. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her upset. She'd dealt with microaggressions before, the surprise when she knew answers, the jokes about affirmative action, the unwanted touches to her hair. Her parents had taught her to pick her battles carefully. But something felt different today. Tyler's voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before. When she'd received congratulations for the art showcase earlier, she noticed his scowl deepening. Now she sensed his jealousy like static in the air. What Kiara didn't know was that Tyler had applied for the same showcase and been rejected. Or that his father had berated him at breakfast about maintaining the Matthews reputation. Or that he'd promised his friends he'd put Anderson in her place, after she corrected him in yesterday's debate. Mr. Peterson was taking longer than usual. The classroom grew restless with whispers. Kiara reached for her water bottle, unaware that behind her, Tyler was unwrapping a piece of gum, chewing it deliberately while staring at the back of her head. She didn't see him nudge Jackson and point to her braids. She didn't see Zoe notice and freeze with indecision. She didn't know her world was about to change completely. The sticky sensation hit the back of Kiara's head without warning. At first, her brain couldn't process what was happening. Then reality crashed in. Someone was pressing something into her hair. Instinctively, her hand flew up, fingers touching a warm, rubbery mass tangled in her braids. Gum. Chewing gum deliberately worked into her hair. The classroom fell silent. 24 students held their breath as Kiara slowly turned to face Tyler, whose face wore a triumphant smirk. "Oops," he said loudly. "Guess it slipped." His friends snickered while most classmates stared in shock. 2 girls covered their mouths. 1 boy looked away, ashamed. No one spoke up. Time seemed to slow down as Kiara processed what had happened. Her braids, the ones her mother had spent hours creating just yesterday, were now contaminated with sticky pink gum. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. This wasn't a prank. This was an attack on her identity, her culture, her personhood. Heat rushed to her face. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept her expression controlled despite the storm raging inside. Years of her mother's warnings echoed in her head. "Never let them see you break." "What's going on?" Mr. Peterson had returned, immediately sensing the tension. Before Kiara could speak, Tyler jumped in. "Nothing, sir. Just passing notes." Mr. Peterson's eyes narrowed as he noticed Kiara's rigid posture. "Kiara? Is everything all right?" 24 pairs of eyes turned to her. This was the moment. Would she break down? Would she scream? Would she accuse? Kiara stood slowly, gathering her belongings with deliberate calm. "Tyler put gum in my hair," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion building in her throat. "I need to call my mother." Mr. Peterson's face flushed with embarrassment. Well, I'm sure it was just an accident." "It wasn't." Kiara met his gaze directly. Tyler interrupted. "Come on, it's just a little gum. Stop being so dramatic." "Tyler, that's enough," Mr. Peterson said half-heartedly. "Kiara, perhaps you should see the nurse." "Tyler, we'll discuss this after class." Kiara felt her heart hardening. Just a little gum? The nurse? No recognition of what had actually happened here. As she walked toward the door, dignity intact but spirit bruised, she heard Jackson whisper, "Dude, that was harsh." Tyler's response was loud enough for her to hear. "Please. She thinks she's better than everyone. Needed to be taken down a notch." The hallway offered no relief from the humiliation burning through her. Kiara headed straight for the bathroom, where the mirror confirmed her fears. The gum was deeply embedded in her braids, a sticky pink snarl impossible to remove without cutting. Her grandmother's words about black women's hair being their crown rang in her ears, making this violation even more painful. She called her mother with shaking hands. "Baby, what's wrong?" her mother asked immediately. When Kiara explained, the silence on the other end spoke volumes. "I'm coming to get you," her mother finally said, voice tight with controlled rage. "Go to the front office and wait." In the principal's office, Kiara sat stiffly while the secretary avoided looking directly at her. 20 minutes later, her mother swept in, bringing with her the righteous energy of generations of black mothers protecting their children. Looking at her daughter's hair, Mrs. Anderson's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. This wasn't just about gum. They both knew it. Principal Whitman's office felt coldly institutional as Kiara and her mother sat facing his large mahogany desk. The principal leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. "Mrs. Anderson, while I understand your concern, let's try to keep this in perspective," he began. "Boys will be boys, and I'm sure Tyler didn't mean any real harm." Kiara watched her mother's back straighten, recognizing the subtle shift in posture that meant she was holding back fury. "Mr. Whitman," her mother said evenly, "this isn't about boys being boys. This is about a deliberate act of disrespect with racial undertones. Do you understand what hair means in black culture?" The principal's expression tightened. "Mrs. Anderson, I don't think we need to make this a race issue." "It became a race issue when someone targeted my daughter's braids," Mrs. Anderson interrupted. "Would you say the same if someone had drawn a slur on her desk?" Uncomfortable silence filled the room. Kiara felt a strange mix of pride and sadness watching her mother advocate for her. Why did it always fall on them to educate others on their own humanity? "What exactly are you asking for?" Principal Whitman finally asked. "Consequences that match the offense. An acknowledgement of the cultural significance of what happened." An assurance that my daughter can learn in a safe environment. The principal nodded noncommittally. Tyler will receive detention. And perhaps we could organize a diversity assembly next month. Detention? Mrs. Anderson's voice remained controlled but took on an edge. My daughter will have to cut her hair that took hours to braid and years to grow. Hair that connects her to her heritage. And you offer detention? Principal Whitman shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Anderson, our disciplinary guidelines need revision. She finished for him. We'll be discussing this further, Mr. Whitman. Much further. As they left the office, Kiara felt both protected and exposed. The whispers had already started. She could feel them as they walked down the hallway. We're going to see Miss Josephine, her mother said as they reached the car. Miss Josephine ran Crowns, the black-owned salon where Kiara had gotten her hair done for special occasions since childhood. When they arrived and explained what happened, the elder stylist's face darkened with recognition. Baby girl, let me see, she said, examining Kiara's hair with gentle fingers. We're going to have to cut around it. No saving these braids. Tears welled in Kiara's eyes for the first time. All of it? Not all, Miss Josephine said. But enough that we'll need to go short. Real short. As the reality sank in, something shifted inside Kiara. The tears retreated. This moment of violation would not define her. Instead, it would transform her. Then make it beautiful, she said with sudden determination. Make it powerful. For the next hour, Miss Josephine worked magic, cutting away the contaminated braids and crafting a stunning short style that accentuated Kiara's cheekbones and brought focus to her expressive eyes. Hair grows back, Miss Josephine said as she worked. But dignity? That's something you reclaim for yourself? She told Kiara stories about hair discrimination throughout history, about women who had turned their crowns into statements of resistance, about the politics of black hair, and the courage it took to wear it proudly in a world that expected conformity. Looking in the mirror at her finished style, Kiara barely recognized herself, not because she looked worse, but because she looked stronger, more defined, more present. What do you think? Miss Josephine asked. I think, Kiara said slowly, that Tyler has no idea what he started. That evening, after her father had joined their family discussion and they had talked through options ranging from legal action to changing schools, Kiara made a decision. She would return to Westlake tomorrow. Not as a victim, but as someone with a mission. She stayed up late researching the history of hair discrimination, documented cases, and school policies. By morning, she had a plan. The next day, Kiara walked into Westlake with her head high, each step deliberate. Her new short haircut framed her face like a declaration. The hallway went quiet as students noticed her, conversations dropping to whispers. Oh my God, Kiara! Zoe approached cautiously. Your hair looks amazing! Kiara nodded, accepting the compliment, while noting that Zoe had said nothing yesterday when it mattered. Thanks. Throughout morning classes, reactions varied. Some students complimented her new look. Others avoided eye contact entirely. A few girls from the Black Student Union gave her supportive nods, understanding the significance without explanation. By lunchtime, Kiara had heard that Tyler received 3 days of detention, essentially a long weekend. No public apology. No acknowledgement of what he'd done. Just a slap on the wrist that his friends were already joking about. Dude got a vacation for a prank, she overheard Jackson say. Total win. In the cafeteria, Kiara chose to sit with Amara and Jasmine from the BSU rather than at her usual table. As they discussed what happened, Ms. Chin, the art teacher, approached. Kiara, do you have a moment? She asked. In the quiet of the art room, Ms. Chin spoke candidly. I heard what happened. It's unacceptable. But not surprising, Kiara replied. Ms. Chen nodded. Unfortunately, no. As one of the few teachers of color here, I've seen the pattern. She hesitated before continuing. Your showcase piece on historical resistance, would you consider expanding it? What do you mean? Art speaks truth when institutions won't listen. Your experience yesterday, it has context, history. Perhaps you could create something that helps people understand. For the first time since the incident, Kiara felt a spark of possibility. I could document cases of hair discrimination. Connect them to broader patterns of cultural erasure. Exactly. Art as education. As witness. Ms. Chen smiled. Use what happened not just to heal yourself, but to open eyes. This conversation marked a turning point. Instead of shrinking from attention, Kiara began methodically documenting microaggressions at Westlake. She interviewed other minority students who shared experiences they never reported, creating a pattern too significant to dismiss. When Kiara approached the school newspaper with her findings, however, she hit another wall. This is too controversial, the faculty advisor explained. Besides, isolated incidents don't constitute a pattern. 27 incidents in 3 months isn't isolated, Kiara countered. The school paper needs to maintain neutrality. Later that afternoon, Tyler and his friends crowded her in the hallway. Nice haircut, attention seeker, he sneered. Trying to make me look bad by playing victim? Kiara looked him directly in the eyes. You don't need my help to look bad, Tyler. His face darkened. Watch yourself, Anderson. My family built half the school. And yet they couldn't build you basic human decency. As she walked away, Kiara knew she'd made an enemy more dangerous than before. But she'd also discovered something important. Her voice was stronger than she'd realized. That evening, she learned from social media that Tyler's perspective was gaining traction. Several popular students were framing her as dramatic and playing the race card. Some suggested she'd cut her hair for attention and was blaming Tyler unfairly. The narrative was being rewritten. Her truth was being erased. When she showed her parents, they exchanged worried glances. Maybe we should consider legal action, her father suggested. Or another school, her mother added. But Kiara shook her head. Running won't solve anything. This isn't just about me anymore. She stayed up late that night, creating a digital presentation connecting her experience to historical patterns of discrimination. If the school paper wouldn't publish her story, she would find another way to be heard. What she didn't know was that someone had recorded Tyler's hallway confrontation on their phone, evidence that would soon change everything. 1 week after the incident, the atmosphere at Westlake had grown increasingly tense. Kiara's short haircut had become a silent symbol that divided the student body. Some admired her resilience, others resented what they called her crusade. Tyler and his friends had escalated their campaign, now openly mocking her hair as militant and attention-seeking. When she entered classrooms, whispers followed like shadows. She's just using this to get special treatment. Why make such a big deal? It was just gum. Playing the race card over a haircut is so dramatic. Kiara maintained her composure publicly, but each comment chipped away at her confidence. Was she overreacting? Should she have just quietly transferred schools? During study period, her phone buzzed with a notification. Her stomach dropped as she saw a link to a video circulating on social media. Someone had filmed the original incident, capturing Tyler deliberately pressing gum into her hair while mouthing racial slurs the teachers hadn't heard. Worse, the comments section had exploded with hateful messages, some supporting Tyler's actions as putting her in her place. Others used explicit racial language that made her hands shake. Ms. Chen found Kiara in the bathroom, trying to steady her breathing. I saw the video, Ms. Chen said gently. Principal Whitman needs to see this. In Whitman's office an hour later, Kiara watched the principal's face as he viewed the footage. His expression shifted from dismissive to uncomfortable, but not outraged, never outraged. This is concerning, he said finally. But Kiara, your response is creating division in our school community. My response? Kiara couldn't believe what she was hearing. Your art project on discrimination, the interviews with students, bringing up historical patterns, it's making other students uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? The word hung in the air. Some parents have called concern that you're turning a disciplinary issue into a racial crusade. Kiara felt ice forming around her heart. So my documenting racism is worse than the racism itself? Principal Whitman's expression hardened. Kiara, you're an exceptional student with a bright future. Your scholarship to Westlake reflects our commitment to diversity. But causing disruption could jeopardize opportunities for you. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Her scholarship. Her future. Her silence in exchange for her education. Leaving his office, Kiara felt hollow. The system wasn't just failing her, it was actively working to silence her. That afternoon in art class, Ms. Chen noticed Kiara's subdued demeanor. Tell me, she said simply. When Kiara explained the meeting, Ms. Chen's face darkened with recognition. I've been there. When I addressed the lack of Asian representation in our curriculum, I was labeled difficult. What did you do? I channeled it into my art. Created something they couldn't ignore. She gestured to the supply cabinet. Your project deadline is next week. Make it count. That evening, Kiara began a new artwork. Using photographs, newspaper clippings, and historical images, she created a mixed-media piece incorporating actual strands of her cut hair. The central image showed her before and after, surrounded by documented cases of hair discrimination throughout American history. She titled it, What We Carry. The next morning, her artwork was displayed alongside other student projects in the main hallway. By lunch, it had become the focal point of intense discussion. Students gathered around it, some taking photos, others talking in hushed tones. Then came the summons to Whitman's office. This piece violates school guidelines on political content, he stated flatly. It's my actual experience, Kiara countered. How is my reality political? The school has received complaints. The piece must be removed. As the art was taken down, Kiara noticed students watching. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others seemed relieved. A few appeared genuinely troubled. Later, she discovered her closest friends distancing themselves, afraid of being associated with controversy. Even Zoe, who had initially admired her haircut, now avoided eye contact in the hallway. That night, for the first time since everything began, Kiara cried, not from the original humiliation, but from the loneliness of standing for truth in a world determined to look away. Maybe I should just transfer, she told her parents. I can't fight an entire system. Her father sat beside her. Do you know why we named you Kiara? It means bright and clear. You've always seen things clearly, even when it would be easier not to. Her mother joined them. Whatever you decide, we support you. But remember, sometimes one voice breaks the silence that allows injustice to thrive. As Kiara fell asleep that night, one question remained. Was her voice strong enough to break through when everyone seemed determined not to hear? The removal of Kiara's artwork hit the school like a seismic wave, creating invisible fault lines throughout Westlake Academy. Teachers spoke in hushed tones in the faculty lounge. Students chose sides without explicitly stating their positions. The administration sent out a vague email about maintaining a positive learning environment. For Kiara, the hallways had become a gauntlet of averted eyes and whispered comments. Even the few teachers who had initially supported her now kept their distance, fearful for their positions. The breaking point came when the school newspaper finally covered the incident, not as Kiara had documented it, but as a sympathetic profile of Tyler Matthews. Understanding all perspectives, read the headline. The article painted Tyler as a misunderstood student who had made a regrettable choice during a moment of frustration. It mentioned his family's contributions to the school and his genuine remorse, despite the fact that he had never apologized. Kiara's experience was relegated to 2 sentences that described her as reacting strongly to what the paper called an unfortunate prank. Reading it in the cafeteria, Kiara felt something crumble inside her. The institutional erasure of her truth was complete. Her hands trembled as she set down the paper. It's wrong, said a quiet voice. Kiara looked up to see Zoe standing nervously by her table. What they wrote, It's wrong, Zoe repeated louder this time. And I was wrong too. I saw what Tyler was about to do that day, and I froze. I should have said something. Before Kiara could respond, Tyler approached with his usual entourage. Ah, look who's playing savior now, he mocked. Trying to earn some virtue points, Zoe? Zoe flinched but stood her ground. I'm just telling the truth. The truth? Tyler's voice rose. The truth is Anderson here can't take a joke. The truth is she's turned a stupid prank into her personal crusade because she loves the attention. Students nearby fell silent, watching the confrontation unfold. The truth, Kiara said evenly, finding her voice, is on video, Tyler. Everyone saw what you did and what you said while doing it. Tyler's face darkened. You know what? My dad was right. You people are always looking for something to complain about. The cafeteria went completely silent. The ugliness behind the mask had finally been revealed. Principal Whitman appeared, sensing trouble. That's enough. Everyone back to lunch. As Tyler walked away with barely a reprimand, Kiara made a decision. She gathered her belongings and walked straight out of the school building. She couldn't do this anymore, couldn't pretend this was an environment where she could thrive or even survive emotionally. At home, she told her parents she wanted to transfer schools. The fight had simply become too costly. That evening, she received texts from classmates she barely knew, spreading rumors that she was being expelled for causing trouble. Others claimed her scholarship had been revoked for playing the race card. The final blow came when Zoe called in tears. I told some friends we should start a petition supporting you, she explained. Now Tyler's friends are saying I'm betraying the school. And her voice broke. Someone said they heard your family is planning to sue the school. What? We're not suing anyone. I might have mentioned that your parents talked about legal action, Zoe admitted. I'm sorry, I was trying to get people to take this seriously. The betrayal stung worse than Tyler's original act. Even potential allies couldn't be trusted. That night, Kiara deleted her social media accounts and cried herself to sleep. Years of excellence, of careful navigation of white spaces, of making her family proud, all seemingly undone by one act of cruelty and the system that protected it. For the first time in her life, Kiara Anderson felt truly defeated. The path forward had disappeared, and all she could see was an endless struggle against forces too powerful to overcome. What she didn't know was that her story had traveled beyond Westlake's walls. The video, her artwork, and the school's response had reached someone with the power to help her find her voice again, someone who understood exactly what she was experiencing. Tomorrow would bring a completely unexpected ally, but tonight, Kiara could only feel the weight of standing alone against a system designed to break her spirit. 3 days had passed since Kiara had left Westlake. 3 days of her parents making calls to other schools, of sleeping past her alarm, of ignoring the texts that still trickled in from classmates either offering support or spreading rumors. The doorbell rang on Saturday morning. Kiara was surprised to find Ms. Chen on her porch, holding a portfolio case. May I come in? The art teacher asked. Seated in the living room, Ms. Chen got straight to the point. Your artwork wasn't just removed, it was powerful. I took photos before they took it down. She opened the portfolio to reveal printouts of what we carry. Thank you, Kiara said, but I don't think I'll be coming back to Westlake. I'm not here to convince you to return. I'm here because your voice needs to be heard, whether at Westlake or not. Ms. Chen hesitated. There's someone you should meet. Her name is Dr. Maya Phillips. She runs the Community Arts and Justice Center downtown. Why would she want to meet me? Because 20 years ago, she experienced something similar at another private school. She's built her career giving voice to stories like yours. Kiara's skepticism must have shown on her face. Just meet with her, Ms. Chen urged. Tomorrow afternoon. What do you have to lose? The next day, Kiara and her mother entered the Community Arts and Justice Center, a renovated warehouse space filled with powerful artwork from local artists of color. Dr. Phillips, a regal black woman in her 40s with locks cascading down her back, greeted them warmly. "Ms. Chin shared your story and your artwork with me," Dr. Phillips said after introductions. "Both are extraordinary." For the next hour, Dr. Phillips shared her own experience of racial harassment in high school and how it had shaped her path toward educational advocacy and art as social justice. "Schools like Westlake operate in bubbles of privilege," she explained. "They're not equipped to handle truth that disrupts their narrative of excellence and inclusion." "So what am I supposed to do?" Kiara asked. "Just accept it and move on." Dr. Phillips smiled. "Actually, I have a different proposition. The school board meeting is Thursday night. Every year, they congratulate themselves on diversity initiatives while ignoring the experiences of students like you. You want me to speak at the meeting?" The thought made Kiara's stomach clench. "I want you to educate at the meeting. There's a difference." Dr. Phillips leaned forward. "What happened to you isn't just about gum or hair or one cruel boy. It's about systems that minimize harm to preserve power. But I tried speaking up. No one listened. Because you were speaking to people invested in not hearing you. The school board has public oversight. The superintendent will be there. Local press attends these meetings." Hope flickered in Kiara's chest for the first time in days. "What would I even say?" "The truth, but packaged as education, not accusation. I can help you prepare a presentation that no one can dismiss as just your personal grievance." Over the next 3 days, Kiara worked with Dr. Phillips to create a powerful presentation. They gathered statistics on racial discipline disparities, documented cases of hair discrimination nationwide, and incorporated testimonials from other minority students who had experienced similar treatment. Kiara rebuilt her artwork into a digital presentation, adding historical context that made her experience part of a larger pattern impossible to dismiss as an isolated incident. The evening before the board meeting, Ms. Chin called with unexpected news. "Students are organizing," she reported. "After you left, something shifted. The video kept circulating. More students started questioning why the newspaper article was so one-sided." "Really?" Kiara could hardly believe it. "Zoe may have betrayed your confidence, but she's been working to make amends. She and several others are planning to attend the board meeting tomorrow to support you." For the first time in weeks, Kiara felt the weight lifting. Whether or not she returned to Westlake, her voice would be heard. Her experience would be acknowledged. Her truth would be witnessed. That night, she practiced her presentation for her parents, who watched with tears and pride. "I'm scared," she admitted afterward. "Being scared and being ready are not mutually exclusive," her father said gently. "You can be both." As she fell asleep, Kiara realized something important. This wasn't just about seeking justice for herself anymore. It was about creating space for everyone whose truth had been silenced. It was about transforming pain into purpose. Tomorrow would test everything: her courage, her composure, her commitment to speaking truth to power. But for the first time since Tyler had pressed gum into her hair, Kiara felt ready to face whatever came next. What she couldn't know was that someone unexpected would also be attending tomorrow's meeting, someone whose presence would change everything. The school board meeting room was already crowded when Kiara arrived with her parents. Community members filled the rows of chairs, with a few local news outlets setting up cameras near the back. Kiara's heartbeat quickened when she spotted several Westlake students and teachers, including Ms. Chin, seated together on the left side. Zoe caught her eye and gave a nervous thumbs up. Beside her sat at least 15 other students Kiara recognized, including 4 members of the Black Student Union and, surprisingly, Jackson, one of Tyler's friends. Principal Whitman and several Westlake administrators occupied the front row, their expressions tense. And there, off to the side with his parents, sat Tyler Matthews himself, looking uncomfortable in a blazer and tie. Dr. Phillips greeted Kiara at the door. "Remember, you're not just telling your story, you're educating everyone in this room. Speak your truth with dignity." The meeting began with standard agenda items. Kiara's hands grew clammy as she waited for the public comment period. when the board chair finally announced, "Next speaker, Kiara Anderson," the room fell silent. Kiara approached the podium, connecting her laptop to the projector. Her artwork appeared on the screen behind her, the images of her before and after the incident, surrounded by historical contexts of hair discrimination. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "My name is Kiara Anderson. I'm 15 years old, and until recently, I was a sophomore at Westlake Academy." For the next 7 minutes, Kiara delivered the presentation she and Dr. Phillips had crafted. She didn't just recount what happened to her, she contextualized it within patterns of discrimination, backed by research and statistics. "When Tyler Matthews pressed gum into my hair, it wasn't just about gum," she explained. "It was about power. About who belongs and who doesn't. About whose dignity matters." The room remained utterly silent as she spoke. Even board members who had initially appeared distracted were now watching intently. "I'm not here seeking punishment for one student," Kiara continued. "I'm here because what happened after the incident reveals systemic problems that affect all minority students. When administrators minimize harm, when accountability is selective, when speaking truth is labeled disruptive, the message is clear about whose experiences matter." She outlined specific policy recommendations: mandatory cultural competency training, clear anti-discrimination protocols, student-led diversity councils with actual power, and accountability measures for administrators. "This isn't just my story," she concluded, displaying photos of her rebuilt artwork. "It's about creating spaces where all students can learn without having to choose between their dignity and their education." When she finished, the silence lingered for 3 heartbeats before applause erupted from the student section. Several board members were visibly moved. The superintendent leaned forward, making notes. The board chair thanked Kiara and opened the floor for additional comments. To everyone's surprise, Tyler's mother stood and approached the podium. Mrs. Matthews, elegant in expensive clothes, looked directly at Kiara. "I want to apologize to Kiara and her family," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "What my son did was inexcusable. More inexcusable was our family's response, minimizing, deflecting, using our influence to protect him from consequences rather than teaching him accountability." A collective intake of breaths swept through the room. No one had expected this. "Our donation history with Westlake should never have factored into how this incident was handled," she continued. "As parents, we failed Tyler by not teaching him the impact of his actions. And Westlake failed both students by prioritizing our family's comfort over Kiara's dignity." She turned toward Principal Whitman. "The school's response revealed problems that go far beyond one incident. I fully support Kiara's recommendations and pledge my family's resources toward implementing them." When Mrs. Matthews finished, other speakers approached one after another, students sharing similar experiences, teachers expressing frustration with administrative handling of discrimination, parents demanding change. By meeting's end, the board had committed to investigating Westlake's handling of the incident and implementing Kiara's recommended policy changes. The superintendent announced the formation of a district-wide task force on discrimination, with Kiara and Dr. Phillips invited as founding members. As the crowd dispersed, Tyler approached Kiara hesitantly, his parents behind him. "I'm sorry," he said, eyes downcast. "What I did was wrong. Really wrong." The apology felt small against the harm caused, but Kiara recognized something in his face she hadn't seen before: genuine shame. "Thank you for saying that," she replied simply. Outside the building, supporters surrounded Kiara with congratulations and gratitude. Ms. Chen hugged her tightly. "You did more than speak up, you changed things." For the first time since the incident, Kiara felt the weight fully lifting from her shoulders. She had transformed a moment of humiliation into a movement for change. Her voice, once silenced, had become a catalyst. What had begun with gum in her hair would end with transformation much bigger than herself. 3 months after the school board meeting, Westlake Academy looked subtly but significantly different. New posters highlighting cultural diversity lined the hallways. Teachers underwent weekly training on recognizing and addressing microaggressions. Most importantly, a student-led diversity council, with Kiara as its elected chair, now had direct input on school policies. Kiara had returned to Westlake, not because she needed to, but because she chose to. Her artwork, What We Carry, was permanently displayed in the main hallway, alongside information about the history of discrimination in American schools. Tyler had completed a restorative justice program designed by Dr. Phillips, which included extensive education on racial history and the impact of seemingly small acts of discrimination. While he and Kiara would never be friends, they had reached a state of cautious mutual respect. On this particular morning, Kiara stood before her fellow students in the auditorium, her short hair now grown into a stylish afro that she wore proudly. As chair of the Diversity Council's first Cultural Heritage Month, she was introducing a panel of local speakers, including Dr. Phillips and, surprisingly, Mrs. Matthews, who had become an unexpected ally in school reform. 6 months ago, I sat in this same auditorium feeling invisible and powerless, Kiara began. Today, I stand here not just as a student who survived an incident of discrimination, but as someone who helped transform a painful moment into lasting change. The audience, significantly more diverse than before thanks to new recruitment initiatives, listened attentively. What happened to me was not unique. The difference was that it became visible, undeniable. And when truth becomes visible, we all face a choice: look away or look deeper. After the assembly, Principal Whitman, who had nearly lost his position following the investigation but had committed to genuine growth, approached Kiara. The superintendent called this morning, he said. They want to implement your policy recommendations district-wide. They're asking if you'd consult on the rollout. Kiara nodded, accepting the opportunity with the confidence she had cultivated through those difficult months. Later, in art class, Ms. Chen watched proudly as Kiara worked on her newest piece, a collaborative mural with students from across the district, depicting moments of solidarity and cultural celebration. You know what still amazes me? Ms. Chen said. How you transformed something meant to humiliate you into something that empowered not just yourself, but others. I had help, Kiara replied, thinking of her parents, Dr. Phillips, and even Mrs. Matthews, whose guilt had transformed into genuine allyship. Yes, but it was your voice that started everything. Ms. Chen smiled. Some people spend their whole lives finding their purpose. You found yours at 15. After school, Zoe and Amara joined Kiara for their weekly Diversity Council planning session. What had begun as a response to discrimination had evolved into a proactive force for change, with initiatives ranging from curriculum revision to community outreach. Remember when we were afraid to even say anything in class? Zoe marveled. Now look at us. It's not just us, Kiara reminded her. The whole system is shifting. That evening, as Kiara's mother braided her growing hair, they reflected on how far they had come. I keep thinking about what you said that first day, Kiara murmured. About our hair being our crown. Her mother's fingers moved skillfully, weaving strength into every strand. It is. But you proved something even more important, that our voices are our power. Later, Kiara stood before her bedroom mirror, touching the intricate braids thoughtfully. The girl who looked back at her wasn't the same one who had sat in that classroom 6 months ago. She was stronger, wiser, more purposeful. What began with a cruel act meant to diminish her had instead revealed her true capacity. The gum in her hair, intended as an ending, had only been the beginning. Kiara smiled at her reflection, recognizing the truth that would guide her forward. Sometimes our deepest wounds become our greatest gifts to the world, if we have the courage to transform them into purpose. And she had found hers. The journey we've witnessed with Kiara reminds us that our response to injustice can be more powerful than the injustice itself. When she stood before that school board, she wasn't just seeking personal vindication, she was creating space for countless unheard voices. Sometimes what begins as our deepest wound becomes our most meaningful purpose, transforming not just our own story, but the world around us. If you were in Kiara's position, what would you have done differently, Or would you have followed a similar path? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful narratives. Our next story is already waiting for you. Just click the video on your screen now.